Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zanker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zanker and I'm your host. And as you know on this show, we're looking to give you a new perspective so that you can take back time, which really isn't not taking back time, but you're able to work smarter and not harder. And we so often get caught in that working harder as a default, thinking that that's going to help us to catch up. And it doesn't. So today we're going to talk about a really important topic that, although I think it's talked about a lot, I don't think many companies are doing anything serious about it. We're going to talk about meetings that are burning us out, that are, from my last statistic I saw, that about 60 to 75% of people feel that meetings are ineffective and unproductive. So let's talk about how we can make meetings more productive. Do we need less of them? How can we do them differently? So I'm really excited to have an expert on our show to talk about that. Mamie Kanfer Stewart is here with us, and she is going to be sharing us those insights. She is passionate about helping people thrive at work, and she's the host of the Modern Manager podcast and author of Momentum, Creating Effective, Engaging, and Enjoyable Meetings, and founder of Meteor, a training firm focused on productive meetings. In addition to all of that, she's also an executive coach, a trainer who works with entrepreneurs and managers to build the habits that they need to successfully manage themselves and their teams so that everyone can be their best selves at work and do their best work. Well, that sounds amazing. I'm so excited, Mamie.
Thank you so much for having me today, Penny. I'm so excited to be here to talk about my favorite subject, meetings.
I can't imagine that's your favorite subject. I mean, everybody's probably like, meetings, just even the thought about it is daunting for many people. Why did you make this sort of the center of your existence?
For the exact reason that you just said. When I stumbled upon meetings as a problem at work, I could not believe how vast the problem was. Every person I talked to, whether it was at after school, picking up my kids, talking to a parent, if it was at bar, meeting someone, it didn't matter where I was. If I asked someone about their meetings, everyone had a story about a terrible meeting that they were in, at least that week, if not that day. And when I started looking into the solutions, I was like, this isn't rocket science. Meetings are a solvable problem. And it just became so clear to me that this is one of the easiest ways to change your culture at work, to help people use their time really effectively, and to create a space where we can do great things together.
Yeah, it's insane. Like you said, it's not rocket science. Let's just start there. Where's the gap? Why is it that we have this high percentage of people that are saying across the board that these are ineffective, yet nobody's doing anything about it in most organizations?
My understanding is that there's two core reasons. The first is that most meeting leaders don't think their meetings are the bad ones, right? The way that we're leading the meeting is designed to get something out of it for us. And most of the time it does, but it's our participants who are not having a great experience. And so there's a disconnect in that way between leading meetings and the experience of participating in meetings. And then the second reason is because, like many things when it comes to being a manager or a team leader, we assume these are just skills that people have, that you get them by osmosis or you figure them out as you're coming up in the workforce. And the reality is that there's a lot of stuff that managers don't learn on the job and are skills that need to be taught and trained. And meetings are one of those. Too often assume you can just figure it out on your own when actually it's a skill to be learned and developed.
Do you think there's anything to it that there's also like this, that we're so busy running from thing to thing, and managers, I often hear they don't have time to lead, right? It's like that whole thing by Marcus Twain that I would make it shorter if I had more time. Is there something in that we're also just not taking that small space of time that we need to prepare for them?
Absolutely. To me, that's part of the lack of training. we are not used to preparing for meetings. No one has told us that that's something we need to do. And even when good managers and good leaders do prepare for their meetings, it's not always so obvious to their colleagues that that's exactly what they did that translated into it being a great meeting. But preparing for meetings is a huge problem that we see it as being extraneous and not as being essential.
True. If we stick on this just for a minute, what are the top 3 things that you would train a manager so that their meetings are more effective?
The first thing is conceptually to think of your meetings as a cycle. There's actually 3 different phases. There's the preparation phase, the meeting itself, the in-meeting phase, and the follow-up phase. And we often think of meetings as just an event, the thing on the calendar that we show up for. But if you start to think about every meeting as having these 3 phases, then you start to think about, what do I need to do to prepare for this meeting? And what do I need my colleagues who are going to be there? What do I need them to do to prepare? Then what are we doing in the meeting? How am I facilitating to make sure that we're getting engagement and the best thinking in the room and that we're using our time wisely to achieve our goal? And then lastly, what do we have to do afterwards to make sure that whatever decisions were made, whatever next steps were generated, those things get shared with the right people and end up on our task list so that they get followed up on? That's the first of the tips. Think of it as a cycle or phases and not just an event.
I like that. One of the things that I've been talking about in the last months and coming up with my book that's coming out, The Reset Mindset, is so it's kind of resetting how we define our meetings, right? And it's not just an event. I really like that definition, that we see it typically in the past as an event, and we should be seeing it as more of a 3-step process. And then that changes the way that we approach it, right? When we change our perspective, then we can approach it differently. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I like that.
Exactly. Number 2, set a desired outcome. Another problem that we have in the way that we think about meetings is we think about the activities that we're going to do in the meeting. We think about checking in and getting a status update and reviewing a document or giving feedback or updating whatever, having a discussion, reflecting on something. All these verbs that are great in terms of thinking about the activities we're going to do, but are not really helpful in defining what success looks like. And when you walk out of a meeting, you don't want to look back and say, oh, that was a great discussion, but what did we accomplish? So what? We want to think about the desired outcome of the meeting. What is this meeting trying to achieve? Maybe a discussion is going to get us there, but at the end of the meeting, we're going to have fill in the blank. We're going to have a list of 3 ideas that we're going to explore further. We're going to have agreement on how to respond to that customer inquiry problem. We're going to have whatever it might be, figure out what the meeting is trying to achieve, and then design your meeting to meet that objective and tell your participants, people who are coming to the meeting, what that objective is, because that then allows everyone to be moving in the same direction during the conversation, which also will just keep your meeting more on track, will help everyone know what their contributions are moving towards and feel more valued and able to more participate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's surprising to me, not just for meetings, but in general, how we are so task oriented and not outcome oriented, right? When managing the productivity of our day in any way, that we're going to get more done if we're focused on the outcomes and the impacts for every block of time that we sit down to do. Amen to that. That's a definite area that we need to reset, that our work is to be more focused and managing and measuring progress and outcomes versus tasks and activities, for sure.
Exactly.
I want to ask you a question before we go on to number 3. I've always thought and recommended that we try to cram too much into our meetings. When we get clear on that outcome, right? I kind of feel like certain meetings don't belong to have other content together. So if it's a check-in meeting, let it be a check-in meeting. If it's a brainstorm meeting, let it be a brainstorm meeting, that they should be separate. We try to cram everything in. And then, of course, then everybody has to be present. If we know the outcome, then also the people who really need to be there can be there. And those that don't need to be there can get their work done. Can you speak more to that?
Yes. I mean, what you just said is exactly it. It's fine to have a team meeting that has multiple different things. There might be some relational time. There might be some sharing and status update and kind of alignment is what we call it. Alignment time. There might be some decision-making time. That's fine when the group of people is the right group of people to do all of those activities. But if you're trying to stack together some different pieces that don't really relate, that require different participants, then it's not actually a productive use of everyone's time. And it also can be a little jarring to jump from thing to thing when it's not the right group of people or when that pieces of content aren't connected. It's better to have fewer shorter or more shorter meetings than fewer longer meetings. You want to know, what is the desired outcome we're trying to accomplish? What do we need to do to get there? And who needs to be in this meeting to be able to accomplish that objective? And if that means you have to have 3 20-minute meetings, great, do that. That's perfectly fine.
All right. So let's go to number 3, and I'll hold the rest of some more questions for after that. What's number 3?
I always get torn about the last one I should share, but I'm going to go follow this path that we're going down, which is not everything needs to be a meeting.
Yes.
This one can be
I'm glad that you chose exactly that one. Yes. And yes. And by the way, yes.
Right. This one gets a little complicated, right? We have the whole meme of, oh, that meeting could have been an email. But we also have a meme of like, that 30 thread email should have just been a meeting. So we're not great at figuring out which conversations need to happen as conversations in real time in a meeting, and which conversations don't need to be conversations at all, or which kind of communications are better suited to a different form of technology. So email is one of those. Sometimes sending an email is the right thing to do. But also we have things like phone calls and recording devices. We can record a message, which to me is our number one underused form of communication. Writing is great. It's fast. You can get things out, but it loses some of the personality, some of the tone of voice. We should be recording more audio messages, more video messages. If you want to give a presentation, don't do it in the meeting. Record yourself giving that presentation with the slides and everything. Send it to people to watch as pre-work. Same thing with brainstorming. There's something really valuable about brainstorming together, but do the first round separately. Let people brainstorm online through a shared tool of some sort, either a Miro board. Get their ideas out first, come together, look at that board, then do a second round of brainstorming. You're using your time in your meeting more effectively. Really think about, what am I trying to accomplish? And is a meeting the best way to get to that outcome? Or is a different communication tool, a different method more appropriate?
Yeah, I love what you're saying. It's like all or nothing, as opposed to, like you said, doing part of the meeting that's asynchronous and on the boards or in a video or whatever type of format, because there's different personality types. And some people aren't good at brainstorming that they have to come up with something in 4 minutes, right? Some people like to let it sit. And especially if it's important to the organization, you want to give people time to reflect on it and really be in a position to get some better ideas. I like those suggestions a lot. And we definitely overuse the written piece of it and underuse the audio and the video, because that whole tone and everything is lost. And then it becomes like this aggressive thing sometimes, like, oh, did you hear they put caps and they were shouting at me? Well, maybe that's not what they meant.
Exactly.
I like that. I'm glad that you chose that one as a third one. Jump in with another quick question that comes up for me is when I'm talking to different organizations and leaders, and recently I was just at one, and it was a small organization and the leaders were there and the people. And I said to the leader, are you okay if people say, no, they're not going to attend this meeting? Because I think there's a psychological safety issue in a lot of organizations where people don't feel that they can say no to the meeting. So they end up like frustrated because they sit through all these meetings that they don't really need to be at. How do we solve that problem?
It is a huge problem that the only acceptable reasons in most organizations to decline a meeting is you're out of the office, you're sick, or you're in another meeting. Like, that's not right. It cannot be the only reasons that we are allowed to say no to a meeting invite.
Yeah.
We have to start shifting our culture and the way that we think about meetings as being part of how we prioritize all the things that we have on our plate. If you get invited to a meeting and you don't know what that meeting is set to achieve, you don't know the desired outcome, you have a responsibility to ask the meeting leader. And it can be as simple as like, hey, saw this meeting invite come through, wondering what you're trying to accomplish in this meeting, or wondering what you're hoping to get out of this meeting, and what you're hoping, what value or what you think I'm going to contribute to this conversation, right? You can ask that of your meeting leader, and they should be able to give you a good answer. And then that should be able to help you decide, is this the meeting that I should be in? Or is this a meeting that, looking at my plate, really, I don't have time for this? Or I'm not the right person for this. Maybe there's someone else on my team, or maybe they don't need me for this. You need to have that information. If you just outright try to decline meetings, it can create lots of complexity in your relationships. But when you're able to tell the meeting leader, hey, I see this. I understand what you're trying to accomplish. I don't think this is the best use of my time given my priorities. The other thing you can do is offer, is there another way I can contribute? I'd be happy to look at any materials ahead of time and share my thoughts. I'd be happy to chat with you after the meeting for 5 minutes and hear the key takeaways and if there's anything that I can do to support those outcomes. You can find opportunities just like with the meeting cycle, there's the before, during, and after. We can find ways to contribute without having to be present in the meeting.
Yeah, for sure. Just to respond to you don't think it's the best use of your time. Well, who are you to think that it's the best use of your time? If I tell you to be there, I'm your boss, right? I think
it can get tricky.
That's what people think that they're going to hear back, right?
Yes, and it can get tricky. And that's when you go to your boss and you say, help me figure out what I need to rejigger then on my plate, because I can't be in this meeting and get these other things done that we've agreed I'm going to get done this week on this timeline according to what the priorities are that we have for our team. Your boss is there to help you figure those things out. If they're the one asking for the meeting, they should be the one to help you figure out if you should be there or not and what that means for the rest of your workload.
I'm a big proponent of asking more questions. I think that's something that we also is underutilized, is that we just don't ask the questions. We make assumptions that we must be there. That person thinks it's important that I'm there. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just hit all to the department. And if you ask to get out, they would be fine. I agree with you in that. And I call these times when we need to step back and reprioritize or rethink something, reflect. I call them reset moments so that we could just step back and be really clear on what's most important and stay focused on that. And that might mean asking some questions and getting some clarity during that time. I think that's a really good suggestion. I also think it's really important that as we're talking about this and for the people that are listening, is we're saying what the person who's receiving the message can do. But clearly there's a problem with the people making these meetings. Like you said in the beginning, there was a gap between the person who's having it, who thinks that they're doing a great job and everybody else thinks that it's boring and it was pointless. How do we get through to the leaders what their responsibilities are? What are aside from training, what are some of the tips that they need to be thinking about when they're booking a meeting?
The first is always, what am I trying to achieve, right? What's that desired outcome? Because that is going to lead into everything else. Does this still need to be a meeting or is there another format? Who needs to be there in order for this desired outcome to be accomplished, right? That allows you then to not have to invite everyone or people that just kind of come top of mind, but actually make sure you have the right people in the room. It helps you figure out what you're going to do and how long the meeting should be. So it all starts with the desired outcome. But even beyond that, meeting leaders that I talk to who figure out, oh, wow, yeah, I don't need to invite everyone. They have their own fears. If I don't invite this person, they're going to think I'm mad at them. They're going to feel like they're not included in the decision. Meeting leaders also don't want to exclude people, and for a good reason. We need to find this agreement across a team. And this is another thing meeting leaders can do, is to go talk to your team about your meetings. Talk to them about who should be included and why people should be included and what you're going to do if people aren't included. And part of that is this trust factor. I don't want to say no to a meeting invite if I don't believe that they're going to tell me what happened in that meeting. If I'm going to be left out of the loop, I'm going to probably go to that meeting, even though it's a bad use of my time. And if it's a virtual meeting, I'm probably going to also be doing work on the side. That's like the worst case scenario for everyone involved, because you're not really focused on the work that you're doing. And the meeting now has a bunch of people in it who are only half engaged. That's a lose-lose situation.
Right.
By talking to our team members and encouraging us to actually think about our meeting culture, who should be invited? What if you're not invited? What does that mean? That doesn't mean you're being excluded. Here's how we're going to make sure you still have opportunities to stay in the loop, to contribute. That can start to change how everybody engages in meetings. And that's when you really hit the win-win.
Totally. And I think we need to chunk this up even further to having discussions about the whole communication, not just meetings, but the whole communication of the team and how that functions and where meetings fit into that as part of it, right? We've got like 10,000 platforms now. Okay, it's an exaggeration, but people have to be present on so many different platforms as well. So there need to be some guidelines and standards set across all of that to support what and when people are needed to be where.
Yeah, it's helpful to think about meetings as part of your communications portfolio. that we have different methods for communicating that are best suited for different kinds of communications. And you can, as a team, create some norms around that. Why would we do email versus Slack? What should be in a meeting versus what should be sent as a recording? You can have those conversations with your team and you can experiment. It doesn't have to be okay, we're making big changes and it's now complicated, even more complicated because now people are like, oh no, I'm going the wrong thing. And you can start with small changes, make them experiments and assess how they're going so that if it's not working for folks, you can address it and you can try something else until you figure out what's best for your team. Absolutely.
That's where my reset mindset comes in. And I want to ask you a question about that in a minute, but that you're constantly reassessing it. That's the key, is that you don't set it and forget it. You're constantly reassessing. Maybe you're rating each meeting at the end of the meeting to see, are these meetings effective? Maybe you're meeting quarterly just to review that whole communication and what's working and what's not working, that you can refine it and constantly be having it work for you instead of work against you. That's kind of the idea of the reset mindset, is that we're dynamically reassessing things and not sort of holding on to everything just because that's the way we've always done it. If you had to define, what does a reset mindset mean to you, knowing that you know nothing about it, but how would you define it if you had to define it?
Listening to you today describe different kind of reset moments and reset mindsets. And I would say, I guess in my experience too, that a reset mindset is really about having the freedom to pause and say, the way that I've been doing it before isn't necessarily the way that I want to keep doing it going forward. It may no longer be serving me. And we see this all the time in organizations where we are doing things because at one point they made sense. And now we just do it because it's tradition and we just keep on doing it. And we need to have opportunities to pause and just have that reset and say, is what worked in the past still working? Or do we need to do something different going forward?
Absolutely. It's like children. I don't know if you have children, listeners, you probably have children. You can have a strategy that works great for one child and that'll work until it doesn't. And then you've got to shift it up. And then it doesn't work at all with another child, right? Completely different. So we have to constantly be more agile and adaptable in the way that we interact with everything in our lives.
Yes.
Great. So what didn't I ask you yet that you want to share before we close out today's show?
Well, just because AI is such a hot topic in the work world right now, I feel like I would be remiss to not mention how many amazing AI tools there are that can help us with our meetings. The other tip that I always give when people ask me my top tips, the one that I didn't share earlier, was about meeting notes, because they are an essential part of how you're able to share information after the meeting with the folks who weren't there, to make sure that everybody gets the same story. And AI is now making that so easy for us, where it can capture the conversation, summarize it, pull out the key takeaways. There's some really fabulous tools that can make your life as a meeting leader so much easier and allow your team members to get that information instantly. And they can even, like some of my favorite ones, allow you to like chapterize it kind of automatically creates chapters in your recording. Team member can literally rewatch or watch for the first time if they missed the meeting, a section to see the actual conversation, which just gives them so much more richness to that thinking. Definitely check out a meeting tool, a meeting AI tool to help you with your meeting notes.
Totally. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Where can people find out more information about you, your books, and your work?
So if you're interested in meetings, the best place to go is meteor.com, meeteor.com. If you are looking for my podcast, it's at themodernmanager.com. And it is all about how to be an effective manager, including meetings, but much more broadly. And if you're looking for coaching, you can go to my personal website, mamieks.com, MAMIEK as in kangaroo, S as in south.com. And then I'm on all the socials.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for being here. It's time to take action. No matter whether you're organizing the meetings or you're attending the meetings, we have to take a reset and be responsible for it, that we are driving change in our meeting culture. There is no reason why we should be exhausting ourselves and wasting our time. We need to stand up and take action. With that, my name is Penny Zenker, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.